Hi, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Risk with Dr. Naveen Agarwal, where each week we talk about a topic related to risk management of medical devices. I'm your host, Naveen Agarwal, principal and founder at Achieve, where my personal mission is to help you achieve success in risk management. In this episode, I'm joined by Michael Bocchinfuso, who has been working with artificial intelligence and machine learning enabled medical devices, not only from the engineering perspective, but also from the quality and regulatory side. So he has a good understanding of what the regulatory authorities are looking for and how they evaluate the benefit risk of these medical devices. We had this conversation in front of a live audience as part of the Let's Talk Risk series in a LinkedIn audio event. You're about to hear a recording of our conversation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. So Michael, with that, welcome. Please introduce yourself a little bit to our audience and share a little bit of a personal story. What got you into this role? And what are you particularly excited about working with AI ML devices?
Sure. So thank you, Naveen, for having me. An old radio joke. I'd like to say I'm a longtime listener and a first-time caller. So I'll talk a little bit about my background. I'm originally an electrical engineer, electrical and software engineer. My bachelor's was from Stevens Institute of Technology. After undergrad, I worked in avionics system design for a company called Safe Flight Instrument Corporation out of White Plains, New York. So for about 8 years, I was doing PCB design, but also working with automated testing. I was working with the quality department on incoming inspection of parts. I was doing FMEA analysis of very, very comprehensive look of, what happens, what's the expected lifetime of each particular resistor, capacitor, transistor, what happens when you put them all in one big assembly and it's running for 25,000 hours at whatever pressure, whatever temperature. So I started getting a little more interest into the real world application of engineering, which I feel that's where quality is. And after some time, I decided I wanted to move on. I wanted to progress a little bit, and I moved to become a quality engineer at Dentsply Sirona, medical device manufacturer. The division I was with the X-ray and X-ray adjacent equipment. So all the sensors they pop in your mouth when they take your X-ray, and make sure you have no cavities, make sure that you're also not being exposed to harmful amounts of radiation, what kind of controls are involved in that. And continued my interest and development in medical devices, in quality engineering, in regulatory, a little more interest in regulatory. And then after a few years there, I progressed on to where I am now at Kios Medical, who at the time, the flagship product was Kios Decision Support for Breast, which is an AI ML software as a medical device, which the radiologist takes in, they'll put the ultrasound images and draw a region of interest, and within several seconds, we say with a very, very high likelihood where it is on the different scales, from benign to malignant. Different countries use different scales. Some use a 1 to 4, some use a 1 to 5, some use different classification systems. And our latest product is breast and thyroid. So, and we're also looking at further indications, and it's not just making a better product for the end user, it's also safety and effectiveness. And how do we make the underlying engine better? Nice. And you're also actually helping diagnosis and detection of these really serious diseases or conditions early, right? That's one of the major advantage of AI ML. So before we go any further, AI ML, people use them together. What does it mean? And is it a difference between the two? I am very curious to hear that. That's a good question, Naveen. There's definitely a difference, and they do tend to get conflated, not even not even just in the industry by the people who work with one and or both, but, in the media, you're seeing all kinds of stuff about AI. But is it really AI, or is it just ML, or is it AI without ML? And I think a good, simple analogy, I like to use analogies. I like to use some sports analogies too, is when you go to the batting cages, right? And there's a machine that throws the ball at you, right? And you're swinging. The act of it throwing the ball, that's artificial intelligence. At a very rudimentary level. It's a machine, and it's doing something that a human can do. It's doing it repeatedly. Machine learning would be if that pitching machine had a little more brain power to it, and it could mimic different patterns in throwing. If it could, spoof you, if it could, throw a curveball at you, a literal curveball at you. Right? So machine learning is the underlying algorithm within the product that's helping it maintain and improve.
Got you.
And the machine learning is the overall, the artificial intelligence aspect of it's performing an action that a human could theoretically do. It's probably doing it a lot faster, but it's still something that a human could do.
That is,
I like to use analogies.
I think this is brilliant. This is brilliant. It helps me get it, because with machine learning, what we are hoping to achieve is sort of better result, better outcome. We are learning. And in some ways, human beings also get better through learning. Right. Awesome. So let's jump right into that. You mentioned a couple of products you're working on. We don't necessarily need to go into those products, but I'm very curious to hear from your perspective as both an engineer and a quality regulatory professional. What are some of the key issues you face when you are developing these products and trying to get them through the gate of regulatory, review and approval?
I would say with software as a medical device broadly, and more specifically with AI and ML devices, the whole idea of risk is very different from you're manufacturing widgets, right? You're making 1,000 pieces a day, X number are going to fail. How do you fix that? With software, you had one product, right? And it either passed all its tests or it didn't. The risks are it passed the tests, but you didn't account for what's going to happen in real life. You didn't account for an edge case, or you said it's only an edge case. It's unlikely to happen, but it actually might happen more often than you think. Considering the frequency period of use of a product, right? Considering the technical knowledge of the end user, of the administrator or IT department, where you deploy your product, how are their environments going to impact your product? And you might not be able to immediately foresee that. Each sandbox is going to be a little bit different.
Interesting. So there's a lot of maybe a lot more impact of the environment in which the AI ML product is being used compared to maybe other conventional medical devices. Is that what you're trying to say?
I would say it's that's a good point. That, one thing we found with deploying to different medical facilities, no two are exactly the same, right? There's always some server has some unique aspect to it. Some thing is set up the way it has been and it can't be changed. And we have to figure out how to work with it, or we have to figure out how certain types of images that may not be 100% compliant with the input we normally process. How do we process those? Right? How do we work with those? And we've gotten better at kind of, we've done our own machine learning on ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to improve and try to figure out, okay, what are some foreseeable events? What are likely server settings? What are likely misuses by a user, by different types of users?
Got you. So I know we basically wanted to focus on the theme of benefit risk from a regulatory point of view. Could you say a little bit more about how the regulatory authorities view these products and how they would evaluate benefit risk?
So I think they all tend to generally look at AI and ML devices. The benefits of it are reduction in time spent by medical professionals, and improvement in overall accuracy. From my background is with image processing, so that's what I'm familiar with, but I'm sure there's plenty of other applications for it. The human eye can only look at something for so long and tell you it's that object for so long. And then you wait a while and you might see it a little bit differently, but software as a medical device based on machine learning, which has seen thousands upon thousands of images and doesn't get tired, it doesn't need a coffee break, it's probably going to give you more repeatable results and more reliable results more frequently, and then pass that information on to a doctor who, with fresh eyes, can say, hey, this is, I didn't have to spend the whole day looking at images. I got to spend the whole day actually, talking to my patients.
Yes.
I only had to spend a little bit of time working with the images, annotating them, delving deeper. I can spend more time with the patients, provide more point of care, right?
Yeah. So it's basically we should think of this as an assistant, not the decision maker.
I think that's the strongest argument for AI and ML in medical devices. Having another pair of eyes, having another pair of ears, but one, something that doesn't get tired, something that's seen tons of data and is completely unfazed by it.
So to that point, I know we talked about this briefly in our conversation before we went live. It depends upon how it has learned, what kind of data we have used to feed this device during development to learn, and whether there is any bias in it. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Sure. One, I don't want to say it's a hurdle, but one thing which several regulatory bodies have pointed out, and in talking with other professionals in software as a medical device, they've encountered this as well. A lot of regulatory bodies are getting more concerned with information bias, right? You say your product was tested with 10,000 images. What was the actual demographic breakdown of them, right? What was the age group? What were the age groups? What were the ethnic groups? What were the people with different medical histories? What were their subsets within the population of your data? And figuring out a way to say, okay, we will admit that maybe we didn't fully test it against this specific country's breakdown of these demographics, but give us the data on that, and we'll take a subset of our images which match your country's demographics or your population's demographics, and we'll run it on that. And we'll say it's producing the same results without bias as it did previously.
Got you. So they want to make sure that the device has learned. I keep calling it device because it's a device, but let's say it's a program, it's software. It has learned to take the right action, produce the right result, regardless of these variations we might see. If it's a baseball throwing machine that you talked about,
right?
If a child is in front of the machine should be smart enough not to throw a ball that is intended for an adult player, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so we want a smart machine that knows what they are doing, and the action, the result it produces is predictable and reliable. And we want to remove bias. That's the main idea that you're talking about.
Yes, that's correct.
So just roughly, is that hard to do? How difficult is it to actually prove that you don't have bias?
I wouldn't say it's difficult, but it's not the easiest lift. I think having a lot of it, again, it's going to depend on data, right? If you have good data coming in, you're most likely going to have good data coming out. Figuring out a way to get that data about the different subsets of the populations and run it through your process and make sure that your process is running as it should, and all its sub-processes are running as they should. And it's still giving you the same output you would expect it to give.
Got it. So it's a matter of basically testing that you don't have bias rather than designing in from the beginning that you don't have bias.
Yeah, I think it's probably harder to try to design it in from the beginning.
Yeah.
Which is, usually in engineering, you try to put your fail safes in up front. In this case, it's more of a reactive process.
Yeah. So, there's just a crazy idea that just got into my mind is that a human being is testing if a AI/ML device is biased or not. That's kind of interesting for me to think about because we as human beings have our own biases. So the way you test for bias may itself actually lead to a biased result.
Right.
Is that not possible? So anyway, I got distracted a little bit because I'm so excited about this. And I know we
did have some back and forth with, different regulatory bodies. And I know others have said this, and they say, well, is this generalized to our population? We say, okay, what are the percentages that we need to know?
Yeah.
We'll gladly provide that output. We'll gladly provide that information and test it. We just need the data from you.
So the insight here really is that knowing what we know, we should facilitate a good discussion with regulatory authorities so that we can answer the question appropriately, expecting that their questions themselves may be biased based on their experiences.
Yeah. I mean, both sides have patient safety and effectiveness of a medical device at heart.
Yeah.
And so it's trying to meet them where they are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Very
Give
cool.
us the information and we'll feed it in.
Very cool. I know we're going to run against the clock very soon, so I'm going to invite audience participation. But very quickly, I want to hear from you, Mike. Where is this field going as far as medical devices is concerned? Can you, look into the future, 3, 4, 5 years ahead? What do you see?
I think we're going to see, AI and ML for medical devices, it's going to move beyond just helping a medical professional in terms of a second opinion. I think where it's going to be progressing in the next immediate step, I think will be not, continuing to improve how much time doctors spent doing doctor work and not just paperwork, to put it lightly. I'm not selling them short by any means. I know a lot of medical professionals say they spend an inordinate amount of time on bureaucracy and paperwork when they could be providing medical care. But I think that AI and ML, the next step will be enhancing the effectiveness of those medical professionals by pushing the data directly to them of this patient is at risk. This patient is at risk. Not just this patient, give this another chance, give this another look. I think the next steps will be completely weeding out patients who don't need immediate care, right?
Got you.
And saying that this person is at a low risk, this person is at no risk. Focus on, kind of, I guess triage might be
more like a decision making.
Right? Yeah. I think that's going to be the next immediate step.
So, I know a lot of us are naturally kind of concerned about things that we don't understand very well. And when we hear something like that, we might think about, oh my gosh, what if I'm screened out even though I need the care? What if AI ML is not that smart? And, I know maybe many people have those concerns, but I know we can go into a lot of those tangents. But at this time, I'm going to invite audience participation. Guys, I know David is already raising his hand, so I'm going to bring him on. Guys, please don't wait. If you indicate that you're interested, I'm going to bring you on stage and have you participate in this conversation. David, please go ahead and share what you have in mind.
Thank you, Naveen. Thank you, Michael. This is fascinating. I was curious. You had talked about, or you were answering the question from Naveen about where some of the risks are. And it seemed to me, at least the ones you mentioned, are right at the inflection point of where the machines and the humans intersect. And so how well does that human understand, assess, and then probably even work with other humans to make a decision? Can you talk a little bit more about that part of it? Because it seems like that's where not only the risk exists, or a lot of it, but also the opportunity to improve things.
Yeah, I think the human element is always an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah. It's always there too.
Yeah. Eventually it gets tired, but it's going to be there whether or not you like it. Considering technical knowledge and considering who the end user is and considering how to address them and how they're going to interact with your device and how they're going to take from what they've done with your device and how they're going to interact with others, and trying to bake in as many fail-safes and risk mitigation on your side as you can.
Mm-hmm. So we'll have to develop a better understanding of the human-machine interface, right? That's what I'm hearing you say, and bring that back into the design process to address them very early on. So
yeah, like which elements are medical professionals likely to use within your product? Which aspects of it are more likely to be, that a network admin or an IT professional? Which parts are they going to interact with?
Roles, right?
Figuring out, different roles, different user profiles within your software, and figuring out that, a change made by a network setting isn't going to impact, how the medical professional does their job, their software.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, Vishwas Rao, I'm going to invite you to unmute your mic and share what you have in mind.
Thank you, Naveen and Michael, for my presentation. My question is mostly around the trust of the AI and ML model. Let's say there is an evolution of trust, right? Initially, we do not trust those outputs of the model, and then later stage, we actually trust but verify all, and then trust but verify some. So until unless there is some parallel system which we can have in place to see if the output of these models are within the boundaries, we cannot trust those. At the same time, we need to have some kind of feedback loop. We eventually improve those models. Any thoughts around those aspects of the use of AI and ML in medical devices?
That's a very good question, and we've had regulatory bodies and regulatory assessments have asked, as you improve your device, how are you making sure it's still safe and effective, and how do you make sure that you're still getting results that are as good or better than what you've previously done? And a lot of that, it just goes back to validation and bench testing, and you tweaked the underlying engine, if you want to call it that, and then running it against, your newly acquired data as well as the original batch of data from when you first built the thing. And what's it going to say about the original, let's say, 5,000 images that you fed it based on the state of the software now, and compare that to what it said, let's say, 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And then comparing and contrasting the outputs and the results from that.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the parallel sort of verification or comparison with an expert, right? I know that models are trained based on, how an expert might classify a certain image, and prediction is also in terms of what an expert would say, right? Mike, is that correct? My understanding?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So I know we can go into a lot of more detail on that, but I hope that answers that question. Thank you for asking. Ed, welcome. Please unmute your mic and share what you have in mind.
Sure, Naveen. I have been a little late getting in, so I missed some of this really interesting conversation. Unfortunately, I had another call. But I wanted to point out that on the risk management side, since this is Let's Talk Risk, the AAMI and BSI got together and created a guidance document, an application of 14971 to artificial intelligence, machine learning and artificial intelligence is the title. It's being promoted to ISO as a potential ISO document. So it's been pretty quickly received, but it's how to apply 14971 in this arena and risk management. So it's something that people that are working in this arena need to look at. And I know some of the authors, and they're really top-notch people in this area. So you should get out and look at it. And that's my comment.
Excellent, Ed. Thanks for sharing it. I appreciate that. And I think in future, we should probably dig deeper into that and discuss that some more. So, Michael, while I really want you guys to participate, I don't see any other hands being raised. So please let me know what you guys are thinking about, any opinions, questions, perspectives. But while I wait, Michael, I wanted to, just ask you your experience. Moving from engineering to QA, RA, and now working in AI, ML space. What can quality regulatory professionals learn from that? And how can we actually help advance this field with our unique knowledge and experience? Can you say a little bit more about that?
Sure. I think having gone from a pure engineering background straight, gradually over to regulatory and quality, but still working with product development and different engineering departments over the last several years, I think understanding that they're trying to design something optimally is key. You're taught in engineering, design it optimally. What regulatory bodies want to see is it's designed safely. So the fastest machine, the fastest car may not necessarily be the safest, right? What sort of, does it have seatbelts? Does it have airbags? That's a good analogy, right? The vast majority of cars on the road are affordable and safe, and they don't have all the bells and whistles, right? They're not Ferraris.
Yeah.
I think understanding that the engineering mindset of designing something optimally versus designing something for compliance is something that regulatory and quality professionals need to keep in mind, right? When I was an engineer, it was always the regulatory, we got to do this checklist. We have to make sure that this is there's traceability through here. But understanding why it's being done really helps, right? Communication is key.
So you make a good point that quality regulatory affairs professionals can play a very key role in facilitating this internal discussion and decision making, right? We don't want to swing the pendulum one way or another. We don't want to also overwhelm the organization with only safety concerns. We also don't want to let the organization go, in the name of optimal design to the other end. So I think we play a very critical role in helping to facilitate this conversation. Is that a good understanding?
Yeah, that's a very good assessment. I think keeping product designers and engineers, software or mechanical or electrical, whatever engineering background, keeping them aware that there's always risks involved, right? And whether it's delay in care, whether it's inaccurate results, whether it's absence of results, right? Everyone's trying to deliver a product that's safe and effective. And it's all about how do you do that in the best way possible and make it so that those risks are mitigated to as low as possible.
Got you.
They're as unlikely to happen. And if they do happen, there's, there's a fail-safe, or there's an actual human there as a gate check.
So we are helping. I think we have a role to play in helping these decisions, facilitating the conversation. So guys, again, exciting conversation. We are right at the clock here, 11:30. And, before I close and invite Michael for some closing conversation, I will just share with you a couple of key housekeeping points. In the month of July, we will not have these discussions. So let's go have, a summer off, enjoy life. Fridays are hard for everybody, I know, but we will come back again in August. Know that we are planning to meet every Friday at 11 Eastern. So even though you don't get an announcement in your LinkedIn feed, you can mark your calendar if you're interested in these events and show up, because we're going to be talking about these topics in a very interesting and casual way. And finally, I really would ask you to subscribe to my Let's Talk Risk newsletter, because that's a great way to catch up on conversations you might have missed, read up on other articles, and just engage with the community in general. Now, I know, Chihaji, you are asking to speak, and I never say no to anybody who raises their hand, so we might run a little bit longer today, but I'm going to invite you to come to the stage and share your thoughts. Go ahead, please. Chihaji, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me now, Naveen?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Naveen. It's just I want to make an appeal to everyone. I'm doing my master's and I'm doing a research. Just asking if anyone can support me and participate in it.
Wonderful.
Just thought I use the platform. Thank you very much.
For sharing that, Chihaji. You know, this is also an opportunity for all of us to engage and network. You can reach out to anybody in the audience. Of course, don't spam them. Be respectful. And connect with everybody. And again, guys, this is what it's all about, helping each other. Thank you, Chihaji. With that, Mike, could you share some closing comments with us?
Sure. I'd love to, Naveen. So just in closing, I know we said we were going to talk about benefit risk, and we did, but we also, we kept it casual, we kept it naturally flowing, so maybe we didn't delve as deep as we needed to. But I'd just like to point out that benefit risk for AI and ML, for software as a medical device, consider again, it's not manufacturing physical products, right? The failure rates are going to be more tied to, let's say, how often does something happen? What kind of IT environment does your product work in? What sort of user is the end user? What's their profile? What's their technical knowledge? Is it something that's going to occur under routine use? Is it a case? Is it an edge case? Is it a very remote theoretical edge case? Right? And ultimately, what are the risks going to be? Right? If an AI and ML product stops working right there, it's not, it's probably not going to shut off someone's life support.
Yeah.
I don't know what's out there. I don't know everything that's out there, but it's unlikely to, right? It's more likely to cause a delay in care. It's more likely to cause an incorrect diagnosis or incorrect
You make
treatment.
a good point. So we have to think about benefit risk in a more real world scenario. And I think one tip I will share with our audience here is that go look up the summaries or the letters of approval or decisions that FDA publishes about AI ML devices. I have reviewed many of them. And in fact, it'll help you understand the key factors for benefit and risk that FDA evaluates and looks at and what they think are the right mitigations. I think it'll give you a lot of insight. Mike, I'm sure you have seen some of those, but that's a tip I want to share with the audience. If you go to FDA's website and search for the AI ML devices, you will find all these individual decisions and letters, and you can get a lot of information. We'll talk more about this in the future, guys, I promise. But right now, we are over time. So I want to thank you again for your participation. Love that many of you show up week after week. I love to hear from you. Please reach out to me directly through direct messaging if you have any topics or suggestions, or if you want to join me as a guest speaker. All are welcome. And finally, Michael, I can't thank you enough. This was, for me personally, a very fascinating and interesting discussion. I think you can sense that energy in my voice. Topic is of great interest, and hopefully we'll continue to talk more about this in the future. I want to wish you the very best as you develop these innovative products. You guys are doing the real work. I'm here just talking about it. So I appreciate the work you guys do in the industry, and I'm here to support you in any way I can.
Thank you, Naveen. It's been a pleasure being a guest and chatting it up about AI and ML. And
there
risk.
you go. All right, guys. Have a good weekend ahead, guys. We're going to take a break for a month from these discussions, but stay engaged. Reach out to me anytime. I wish you all the best. Look forward to meeting you in August once again. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.